Welcome to the Silken Slope Show. One of my favorite guests, I think this is 5 or 6 years we've been doing this, Tommy Joe Lucia, Executive Director of the Utah Days of 47 Rodeo. How are you?
I'm peachy. How are you?
I am good. Always better when you're here because that means a good, fun conversation, and it means the rodeo's not too far out.
The rodeo is not too far out, and with the rodeo comes the heat, so it looks like we're looking at triple digits now. So Time to get out the sunscreen and the bottled waters and start to do some outdoor stuff.
Yeah, we had a good spring, and then it's going to, like a light switch, go to summer.
Yeah, well.
That's what happens.
So goes it, right? That's right.
It's good for the garden, good for the crops.
It is.
Yep, and the arena, it does a really good job with the heat, right? Because it's going to be in the middle or end of July, but there's lots of cold beer, lots of cold water, lots of good shade, and there's so much to do outside of the rodeo. But for those that have never been, let's just set the table a little bit. Give us a little rundown of the schedule, the who, what, when, where, and how, and whys.
Well, it's interesting. We're one of the top 5 rodeos in the United States. We give away gold, silver, and bronze medals, which our theme this year is gold medal memories. And when you look at the Paris Olympics happening, the potential for the announcement of Salt Lake City in 34, we embraced the gold medals, which is what we've been doing now since we rebranded 7 or 8 years ago. And so it's going to be an exciting year. There's much more to do than just the rodeo. The rodeo starts at 7:30 p.m. each night. It's the 19th, 20th, 21st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5 days. But if you get there a little bit early, there's a huge expo tent provided by KSL with big water cooling fans, and we've got the largest vendor group, and we're pretty specific on our vendors. So if you go to our show, you're probably not going to see a lot of insurance salesmen, but you might see cute boutique hats that ladies like, authentic Western cowboy hats creased by real cowboys, and a whole host of other really what we think is the kind of stuff that if you're going to roam around, like if you're the husband and you're being drug around by your wife, at least there's something to look at. And if you don't like that, you take the kids out, and we have a little under the tent. We have a little inflatable playground for the kids to play on, and country music playing with live singers. All that stuff happens early, and and it's free. And by the way, if you can't afford a ticket or don't want to go to the rodeo, you could come out there and get on a free mechanical bull ride. Put your kids in the petting zoo or the pony rides. It's experiencing our pioneer heritage and culture. There's a lot to do free. And if you have a little bit of money, then come to the rodeo, because I think it's something that you'll probably want to do from here on out. It's quite an experience.
Absolutely. And it is very affordably priced. And we talk about this every year, but I love that you're going to have 1-year-old, 2-year-olds, and then you're going to have a lot of 92-year-olds.
Yeah.
And I love watching the generational connection. You can see and tell the ones that have been going to rodeos their whole life because they're leaning over and talking to their kids the whole rodeo. That was this, that was that.
Exactly.
And, last year I bought a pair of cowboy boots for my daughter, and I'm like, listen, these are like real cowboy boots. And it was expressed in the price, right? Like they're not Walmart cowboy boots.
Right.
I go, these are a big deal. Like, you're going to pass these on. These will last forever. And, getting through that without the kids wanting everything and anything's the tricky part. But then we go out and you had all the longhorns in the pen, and they were getting moved for the show, right? Like the parade at the beginning. And you got the cowboy with the bullwhip, and boy, that got everyone's attention once he starts cracking that.
Yeah, that's a lost art.
Yeah.
Have you ever cracked a bullwhip?
I tried, never could do it.
Yeah, you got to be careful. You'll put another crack in your back end if you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, they weigh more than you think, and you got to rotator cuff.
It's a lost art, though. You know, they look at the bullwhip is all about the sound.
Yeah.
And was utilized, started with the vaqueros, right? That's where it originated. But we love those guys. Those guys bring those longhorns in. It's interesting. Last year, 3 of the longhorns, the distance between one tip of the horn and the other, now listen to this in case you don't know much about cows or steers, was almost 8 feet.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine sticking an 8-foot piece of furniture on your forehead and navigating life, right? And it's what's really amazing to me as I watch these longhorns. For instance, sometimes the cars will park wrong, and they drive those cattle from the exhibition pen where you can take photos with them, selfies. They drive them around through the parking lot and into the stadium for the opening ceremonies. Well, you'll watch those longhorns walk and slowly turn their head, and they'll miss a rear view mirror by a car by a half an inch. They know exactly. I mean, I can't even get up and make it to the toilet without knocking something over, and they can do that.
Yeah. I wonder what is going through their brains. Like, we look really cool, but damn, these things are heavy.
Yeah, I've got baseball bats bigger than that. Yeah, I wonder. But I do the same thing when I look at my belly, right? I'm like, hey, what happened here? Why do I have to carry this thing around?
Doesn't look cool. Oh, it's so much fun. And it's fun for folks to get pretty close to the cowboys, right? Like, because on the west side, they're all there in their, their trailers, and you can see them getting ready. You can get pretty close to the chutes and see them getting ready, and you can kind of feel that energy, right?
Yeah, it's there. It was amazing when we finished the construction of the Days of 47 Arena at the Utah State Fair Park. We went in to see what seats. Typically, you have to, after design, you have to kill some seats because they're just not good.
Yeah.
Well, out of 10,000 seats, we had to side obstruct 9 seats. So it's really true because it's a stadium feel. There's really not. It depends on what you want. Now we've changed the pricing on the west side where it's shade. It's shade on the west. Now, the first hour of the rodeo, if you're on the east side, there's sun there, and it's warm. But then, a lot of people like the seats right up behind the bucking chutes where they can look down, see the animals being loaded, the guys getting ready, and watch the action. But it really doesn't matter where you're at. That you experience, you feel like you're in it, right? And I know I've been to football games and stuff, and you probably have, where, man, you're just so far off that you don't really, you're there and you're excited you're there, but you still don't feel like you're in it. Well, here, you can hear the air go out of these guys when they hit the ground. I don't care if you're in the top row. Yep,
exactly. And for me, these are all just one giant rodeo memory. So I think it was last year there was a Frenchman who jumps bulls.
Manuel Teste.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And I was interested. I was watching you because there was an incident.
Oh, yeah, there was an incident. There is an incident. Do you want me to talk about the incident?
Yeah.
So we bring in Manu is a French bull jumper, which is a 400-year tradition in France that not many people know. These young men, for recreation, go out and gather and jump Mexican fighting bulls. And a Mexican fighting bull or Portuguese fighting bull, they're very angry at everybody and very, very dangerous. Yeah. So this is a pastime for these guys. Well, Manu is, 10-time world champion. Well, he come to the States to show off his thing. So we bring him in. We made that the last part of the show because the Mexican fighting bulls sometimes don't want to leave. Yep. And we don't want to sit there for 40 minutes while everybody's waiting for us to get the bull out. So he was the last part of the show. Well, on one end of our arena, we have a position there where the camera is low, so it gets the action, and we've cut out pieces of the panel so that camera doesn't have panel in the front of it. Well, this one particular bull one night, he was way less engaged with Manu, who was jumping him, than he was everybody around him, the 10,000 people. And our bullfighters, those are the guys that, protect the cowboys, but they help Manu because they bring the bull, they get his attention, they bring him towards him. That way Manu runs straight in case you haven't ever, if you don't know what the hell we're talking about, this little Frenchman runs straight at a bull who's running 30 miles an hour at him, jumps in the air and does front flips, back flips, shoulder rolls. With his feet tied together, he jumps over them. And every time he does it, it's a near disaster. Yep. And the interesting is 2 things happened. The one you're talking about, our bullfighters, and this is, if you were around me, you saw me hollering. They lure the bull the direction of that opening I was talking about. And I knew, because I started performing in rodeo when I was 3. I was a bullfighter, not very good at it. Now, I saved cowboys, but the way I saved cowboys was because I got the crap hooked out of me, and they didn't. But they were happy with it.
Yeah.
But I wasn't really very good because the goal is to save the cowboy and not get hooked.
Yeah.
That wasn't what this little Italian did. He just ran in there. And anyway, so I could tell what I really felt what was fixing to happen. And the bull followed these bullfighters, and he looked over and he saw the lens of that camera, and it caught his eye, and then he starts walking towards it. And I know, I had hoped that he would just hook the camera, right, and not leave the arena. Well, instead, they're very smart. He decides to turn his body horizontal and dive through the hole. Wipes out a $25,000 camera. The cameraman got out. There was a bunch of staff and personnel back in that area because it's around our gold medal stage.
Yeah.
Well, make a long story short, nobody was injured by the grace of God, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
It was God protecting people. He went around the stage, Manu lured him back out of the arena, and then jumped him twice again. And needless to say, we won't ever turn a Mexican fighting bull out with that hole in there again.
Yep.
And then I think it was the very next night, Manu jumped the bull, and people thought that he ended up getting knocked out and his head split open. But he was doing a front flip. When he jumped the bull, they thought he got hit with the horns, but he didn't. The bull stopped when he was in the air because he knew he had to come down, and Manu hit his hip bone of the bull and busted his head open. So this was intense and exciting. It's not a part of this year's show. I don't typically like to repeat stuff, but we were just really thankful nobody got hurt. The bull, they got him out of there, and I was significantly scared because I saw it coming. I knew there were, Cowboys kids and stuff back there, and these bulls, they're serious about hurting people. It's not, I'm just going to run over you.
Yeah.
So, that's what happened. Thanks for bringing that up, Garrett. Appreciate that. Well, you can probably find it on some kind of video somewhere if you want to see what it looked like.
Well, the one where Manny got kind of dazed, I got that on video, and there was a hush that came across the crowd, and I could hear my wife saying, "Is he?" I'm like, "Oh, he's hurt." And the bull came back and got him one more time.
Right.
And then the bullfighters came because he was coming again, right? Which, like, the bucking bulls, they would have given up by then, but that bull was out for blood. Yeah,
they're out. I think Manu, now he won't admit this, but you're a sports guy, right?
Yeah.
You get a concussion or two, then the concussions come a lot easier.
Yeah.
I think that might be the case with Manu, that his body's preservation tactics say very much of a knock on the head and I'm going to put you to sleep, which was actually a good thing because normally, for instance, when a cowboy, if I see a cowboy that gets into a situation with a horse or a bull where they're going to get injured, it's typically best if they get knocked out. It looks the worst. The crowd is the most scared. They think it's the biggest problem, but truthfully, once their body relaxes, that impact, whether it be from a foot, and by the way, that's how most cowboys get hurt.
Yeah.
It's 1,800 pounds of a hoof, which is pointed, by the way, coming down on their bodies. That's where you see the tragic injuries that we've seen in the past of loss of life, like Lane Frost. It's all from feet.
Yeah.
Usually when they hook you, like even, again, back to when I was a bullfighter, I knew I was going to get hooked. I just didn't want to get pinned, right? You don't want to get pinned where the horns don't have anywhere to go but between you and the ground.
Yep.
If they hook you, like they did me a lot, and knock you like a balloon about 30 feet one way or another, you're going to have a pretty darn good bruise, but you're not going to have to go to the hospital.
Yeah. And you'll know what it's like to fly.
Yeah, well, I believe me. It's not that fun. No.
You can't stick the landing.
No.
When you're on your head.
No, you can't.
Yeah, the reason I was watching you, I didn't avert my cell phone camera because it was pretty riveting, but I'm like, oh boy, that's why he's the executive director of this. He's going to have to make some calls.
Well, I started yelling, which didn't do any good because the crowd was so loud. But when the bull started when I noticed that he was looking at the camera, I knew it was fixing to happen. So I was trying to get my bullfighters' attention to get them to pull him off of that.
Yeah.
And they were too busy running to the fence, which I guess I don't blame them. They don't want to die either. But yeah, I saw it coming, and I'll be honest, I was upset because I knew better. Yeah. Right? I knew better. I didn't think about it in advance, but I knew better, and so consequently, that will never happen again.
Yeah, live and learn. Right? You've got a variable that other big event producers don't have, and that's animals.
Animals.
And you can't tell them what to do.
No, you can't. And you can't avoid injuries and catastrophes. You can prepare for them. And this is so if you haven't been, most people like on a rodeo, people go to NASCAR races. They love to watch the winner, but they want to see a wreck along the way.
Yeah.
Well, I can assure you in the course of a 2-hour rodeo, you will probably see some sort of wreck.
Oh, yeah.
Hopefully it's one that gets your hair on the back of your neck up, but nobody's hurt at the end of the day. And so that's what's interesting. And these guys, these cowboy athletes, they don't get yearly contracts. And that's why you see them competing hurt, because what they take home to mama to feed the cows and the babies is what they win.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why I consider the rodeo athlete the original superstar of the West, because they're authentic, they're real, they earn what they make, and they're tough.
Yep. Yeah, I took a group of folks there's 3 folks that had never been to a rodeo, so that was fun. And there's some good crashes, some big crashes, none that you needed to bring the stretcher out for, but they were limping and you could tell. And I said, they're going to do the same thing in 20 hours.
Exactly. Yeah.
And they're going to do it again.
They're going to get in a truck and drive overnight so that they can do that again. So, which borders on insanity and tough. Yep. Right? Somewhere in between, you could say maybe these guys are insane.
Yeah, in a good way. And thank goodness, because it's a part of America and a part of the West, and we all benefit from the entertainment. There's also some more nuanced events that require extreme horsemanship and rope work. That used to be called calf roping. Now it's called tie down.
Yeah, tie down roping.
But again, like the team penning, boy, that gets people excited.
Well, we added the team penning last year. I thought it would be a good spectator sport. And here's what's cool about it. What drew me to it is that if you're out there and you have a family and you have access to 2 or 3 horses, you might want to look up team penning.
Yeah.
Because you can go with family. And here's what they do. They have 30 head of cattle out there, and they have numbers on them, 3 number 1s, 3 number 2s, all the way to 10. And 3 sets of people on horseback. They blow a whistle and they say, okay, get the number 2 in the pen at the other end without the herd leaving the fastest. So it's easy to understand.
Yep.
And what's really cool is you'll see a dad, a grandpa, and a grandson out there on horseback doing it, and really good.
Yeah.
And see, these are things that you do in the ranch. People don't understand, but they're pulling out the yearlings, right? They got to pull the yearlings out of the herd. That, by the way, a yearling's a 1-year-old animal that they maybe go to market. Well, they don't want to leave the herd. They were raised with their family, and they do that by horseback in the old days, sorting them. Now they've got pre-foot panels and all these cool things to help do that. But so team penning is fun, and it's easy to understand. It's like barrel racing.
Yeah.
If you listen to the crowd, interestingly enough, I run an audio meter. That's how I tell. By the way, if you come to a rodeo, you get loud on what you like, because that's how I know you like it.
Yeah.
I look at the decibel meter on the crowd. And barrel racing, simple to understand.
Yep.
Pretty cowgirl riding a fast horse. She does a cloverleaf pattern around 3 barrels and races out. And you can look at the clock and see how close she is, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's the same thing with team pinning. It was a hit. Now we're going to have one of the largest team pinning events in the country, and we're going to hold it at Golden Spike. It happens all day long, and then the top 4 teams come to the rodeo to compete in a tournament bracket. Then we give away the team pinning cup, which is a large metal cup. Not quite as nice as the Stanley Cup, but pretty cool for these team pinners. So it's lots of responses. Like you said, Garrett, lots of fans said they loved it, so we're bringing it back.
Oh, it is amazing. And some of those kids are just tiny. And they're on
the team pin, yeah. And they're on horses, so again, and you understand this because of your roots in the West, which is kind of why we liked each other to begin with. I don't know why I like you, but anyway, these horses are high powered, and they have what's called cow in them. Well, what's that mean? Well, if you watch these horses, they're watching the cattle, and once they figure out what the boss on their back wants, they'll go get that cow.
Yeah.
They'll cut them out. That's cutting horses, right? And these kids got to know how to ride, because if they don't know how to ride, they're going to end up off.
Oh, yeah.
And we saw some of the not so talented team pinners. The horse makes a left and mama makes a right, and
Yeah.
There's a little bit of a war up there whether she's going to stay vertical or be on the dirt.
Yep. Yeah. And some of these horses, and obviously the livestock, they are not for the faint of heart with the price tag either, right? Like these are cherished and genetically, like everyone knows whose daddy was and mama was that horse's.
It's interesting. In our buck and horse herd last year, we had an incredible set of saddle bronc horses. And it kind of depends on, every year, it's almost like figuring out what's on the bench, who you put in. We bring in 6 different stock contractors. A lot of rodeos have 1. We bring in 6, and they bring in their best animals at that time, right? Some of their best animals may be injured. Some of them may be tired. And it just so happened that last year our saddle bronc pin of horses for each one was absolutely the best you could ever find. And in talking to the contractors, the average price of each one of those bucking horses that were going to be the 8 that were going to be up that night was $150,000 a piece.
Yep.
So it's interesting when people think, oh, these animals are, we see them give their animals Gatorade and electrolytes, the bucking horses and the bulls, because these are their co-workers, right? And anytime an athlete competes, whether he's roping or on a saddle bronc, the second half of the equation is the animal. And they're so important to those of us in the industry that when those people that truly care about animals come backstage and take a look and meet the people, they change their mind because they realize that these animals are not a tool. They're a part of the team.
Yeah.
It's cool. And so, and expensive. Yeah. I mean, you look at these high school rodeos now. I mean, I don't know, you go ahead and raise that little girl to be a barrel racer, but you better get ready because in high school rodeo, these kids are driving $150,000 Featherlight trailers. And we all know a pickup to pull a trailer costs $100,000. Then you put a couple $100,000 a horse in there and another $50,000 a tack. You better have a good credit card or be making some good money because it costs a lot to rodeo.
Yeah, it shames all other sports, right? Like hockey, it's a drop in the bucket. Football, drop in the bucket. Those parents that like get their kids into it, they're working 7 jobs or things are going good on the ranch. It's a massive commitment.
But the flip side is the culture.
Yeah.
And I think this is probably what has kept you engaged, even though you're in the tech world and everything, but the culture is very organic. It's very real. And I think that's why, for instance, the Yellowstone series and, these people, wish that we still had the day when people sat down on the front porch in a rocking chair and talked and didn't just sit there for 3 hours and review Facebook. Yeah. And we're like that. Cowboys and cowgirls, we sit around with each other. We know it's hot, but we love what we do, even though we don't make a lot of money.
Oh yeah, it's magical. We're lucky enough. Sometimes you let us go back and behind the chutes and look at the bulls and stuff and all the stock. And the cowboys will be walking around getting ready, and like we're obviously in the way, and they'll say, "Excuse me, sir. Excuse me." It's always yes, sir, no, ma'am, and the manners are impeccable and. Like you can just see people's hearts melt. They're like, "Oh my gosh, that was a real cowboy."
Yeah.
And he said, "Excuse me, sir."
Yeah, and it's authentic.
Yeah.
I've ever since I could remember, I've said yes, sir, no, ma'am, and in some of the instances, there'll be people. I've had ladies say, "Don't open the door for me," and I'm like, "This is only respect, and it's instinctive." It's literally since I started performing when I was 3. I got my first buckle on. I've been raised in that. I don't know anything else.
Yeah.
And same thing with these guys. It's authentic. It's real. They mean it. And that's why the West is alive. It's cool. It will always stay alive. And we hearken that with the pioneer spirit. It's the same thing with the pioneer spirit in this valley. Like I think I've said this before when we were looking at the connection between, why did they have a rodeo with the parade 90 years ago? Why? Well, it starts to make sense when you see this endearing drive on commitment, right? That you don't know what the reward is.
Yeah.
So you had folks pulling hand carts going over the mountain, not knowing what the top of the hill held. Same thing, a cowboy nods his head. He doesn't know what the next 8 seconds held.
Nope.
It could end his career.
Yeah.
It could give him a gold medal.
Yeah.
And so there's this pioneer spirit that's the same thing as the rugged integrity of a cowboy, I believe. That's the parallel.
Absolutely. I'm interested in this question. I don't know. So you've got 8 bulls. We'll just use bulls as an example. Obviously, there's going to be good bucking bulls, but it's important for like the first 1 or 2 cowboys to kind of set the tone and maybe get a ride, right? Because I've noticed if the first 2 or 3 get bucked off, it might continue all through 8. How do you guys pick the first couple of bulls and cowboys, or is it just out of a hat?
Well, they get drawn to them, so they get a random draw. They know what the pin of the bulls is. So we don't pair animals with cowboys in professional rodeo. Now there are portions of rodeo and in the professional bull riders where they're picking bulls, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But that's not what we do. Now, what we typically do, interestingly enough, is we put a lot of work in the way we load. In other words, which animals come in first. And I'll tell you why. If you're around the game, you hear that an animal has a left-hand delivery or a right-hand delivery. What's that? Well, that means which way do they turn out of the chute matters, because animals are just like us. They're right-handed, left-handed. They have what's just called leads, and they do better, right? If you probably don't throw, are you right-handed or left-handed?
Right.
So you don't throw a football very good with the left hand.
Nope.
Well, if I put you in the position and made you throw the football with the left hand, you wouldn't succeed. Yeah. It's the same thing with this livestock. So we load them in order. I don't ever set it up to where we start with a ride. I can see where you would see that, but I've now done this for 38 years, and I've seen where we've had no rides the entire time in the bull riding. I'm begging for a ride for our fans, and the last guy, who, if you look at the numbers on the paper, he's toast.
Yeah.
I mean, he's Billy Bob from somewhere in South Idaho, and he's got an NFR, National Finals bucking bull.
Yeah.
And so I'll tell my announcers, well, just tell the truth. He's probably going to turn into a fence post here in a second.
Yeah.
And for some reason, they'll ride. Now, I'll tell you what's the difference. The difference for real, and the announcers say this to the audience, but I don't know, they feel the energy of the crowd, and our stadium allows for them to feel it.
Yeah.
So if the crowd's alive, I think that's what happens. You ride the first bull, right?
Yep.
You and your group are like, here we go. I'm going to scream. I'm going to holler. And that matters to these guys that like you said, 20 hours ago, they got thrown off in southern Utah or Colorado or the West Coast. And so the energy is important, Garrett, I think. And riding, it's interesting. It's more on how the judges set the tone. Yeah. Right? Because when they see rides early, how they score it, because they're human. And so they see it the way they do, they score it, and then, oh my goodness, Garrett's ride was better. I better up this score. Yeah. So good point. I don't know that it's actually as valid. I don't set the draw to start or end with a ride. I don't. Yeah. I let the sport dictate. Yeah. But some shows do.
Yeah. And I mean, I can see the advantage of going first, setting the tone. But if you're going last and there's a 80 and then everybody else has been bucked off, that's a different set of pressure than going first.
I think the guys prefer, you prefer to not be the first guy out.
Yeah.
But that's only on the guys that really don't win all the time.
Yeah.
Stetson Wright, you ask Stetson, he doesn't care.
Yeah.
Because his intent's to go out there and to kick their butts, ride better than anybody. He doesn't care whether he's first, last, or in between.
Yeah.
And so that talent, right? That's that confidence. It's the same confidence you see in the guys now in hockey, the goalies, yeah. right? As they go through this gruel of the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
It's confidence. And that plays a lot. You got to believe that you're going to ride that animal. That animal believes he's going to throw you off. And so, yeah, there's some of that goes in. It depends on how much confidence, how long have you been in the game? How good are you? That's the interesting thing when we tell the stories about the Cowboys. This is a rookie.
Yeah.
A rookie first time, step on the back of chutes at Salt Lake, 10,000 people and a gold medal. Yeah. And you look to your right and you've got a world champion on your right and your left. And you got a horse sitting there that hadn't been ridden in 20 times.
Yeah.
You better find some self-confidence or get ready to leave, And some of these Cowboys, truth be known, all they want to do is be able to walk out and say, I rode here.
Yeah.
They don't really think they're going to win.
Yeah. Yeah, but catch that lightning in a bottle, and if you just keep getting bucked off, you're gonna have to go sell insurance at some point, something like that.
Sell insurance, be a barber, do trail, something that you can do if you're injured and have a limp.
Yeah.
But we've seen at our rodeo rookies. The one year we had 2 team roping young men that got into the championship round, the gold medal round.
Yeah.
And these guys sold everything they had to get to our rodeo. And one was 19, I think, and one was 20 or 18 and 20, young kids. They're competing against world champions. They rope, they win. They get $50,000 apiece. They go home and put their money together and buy a ranch.
Yep.
That's the thing, right? And they did it. And by the way, they went on to beat a lot of people because they won the Utah Days of 47 rodeo. And these are the things that if you can sit there and engage are very, very interesting.
Yeah.
Right? It's like my first race car race. I'm watching it. I'm like, well, they're just going left and left and left and left and left. But when you realize that the IndyCar guys in IndyCar and Formula One, that their tires are open and they're going 200,000 miles an hour, and if they touch anything, going that fast, it's a catastrophe.
Yeah.
Your level of engagement in the sport changes. It does in our sport. When I bring somebody behind the chutes and let them see the bull and see the guys getting ready, right, and feel it. Have you ever been to a boxing match, a real one?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The first time I stood there and heard
Yeah.
these humans landing punches, right? That you don't really get on TV. You're like, oh my word. Same thing on rodeo.
Oh,
all the athletes in the world.
Absolutely. We could talk rodeo forever, and I do want to talk about your podcast, No Spin, but I'm interested in a little bit of the experience versus logistics, putting on an event. We've already talked about the variable of the animals. You guys are telling stories throughout the whole thing, historical stories. You're talking about the Native Americans and the pioneers, and in between, during commercials, because it's on TV, there's really good stories being told. And there's, kind of part-time cowboys and cowgirls that Kelsey Bird is a nurse up in Rexburg.
Yep.
She happens to be world-class barrel racer as well. So it's so much different than, that Troy Aikman went to the grocery store last week, and, stuff
I saw
like that.
Troy getting zingers.
So it's really fun. But you mentioned you don't have the same entertainment year after year. So how do you gauge the experience, new types of things? Because as people progress, they're going to need more and more experiences, and they're going to have to take more and more really cool pictures, and you guys have to accommodate that.
Yeah, I think it goes back to what you said in the beginning. My goals are pretty simple. I want to entertain everybody from 2 to 92 or 2 to 102. And the music selection should be such that you hear something you like.
Yeah.
And the entertainment should be such. Now, our rodeo is scripted. I think you've seen some of our scripts. I don't know if you have, but our logs. Our rodeos broke down in essentially 30-second increments, and we're within a minute and a half to 2 minutes of being on time, assuming there's not an injury, right, or something that is unplanned. And in doing that, it's so fast that where I struggle is making sure that there's a valley, a chance to just calm down in 2 hours and eat your popcorn and talk to your daughter where she can hear you and not just scream, right?
Yep.
And so we want those peaks and valleys. I don't ever have to worry about changing the show because the live action and the undeterminability of the animals and the athletes always turns out good. There's a few performances that I call left-footed. It's just like we never really felt like we were hitting it out of the park. It's not really our production crew because we're kind of delivered the meal and we serve it. But the music, the video clips, the telling the stories are important because it's that personal connection that draws all of us to sport.
Yeah.
It does. You gotta love or hate, right? Somebody to root for them or against them. And we have athletes in rodeo that I love to hate.
Yeah.
I just soon see them get smashed. And then there's guys that I really like, that I really want to win. And we want to tell those stories on TV. We're on the Cowboy Channel. And we tell those stories on the broadcast. We can't really do that in the live setting because it's more action upon action upon action. In between the two events, there may be mutton busting, or there's team pinning, or there's man-u jumping bulls.
Yeah.
But in the broadcast, we go in and tell the stories of the local Utah cowboys and cowgirls, or the national people coming, or the animals. The stories of the animals are amazing.
Yeah.
Just amazing. And so you can hear those stories. What I recommend people do is come to the rodeo live, go back and watch it on TV. They'll replay it.
Yeah.
We put on KSL this year, we put an hour and a half feature of our gold medal round that was free to everybody on KSL. You may have caught that. People did, which told the stories of the gold medal round. So you're right. It's about the stories, but it's about the experience.
Yeah.
I love it when I see a mom or a dad put their little one on a pony for the first time, and that little one's eyes light up because of that animal's heartbeat, and they get to walk around, and you see them, they're so proud that they're riding on that pony, or the boyfriend that gets on the mechanical bull and rides it and gets off, tells girlfriend, yeah, I'm a cowboy. I mean, it's those gold medal memories that we're talking about this year that are much more than just the action in the arena. It's the things that you take home, you talk about in the car, and the impact it has on kids and family is pretty impressive. It's a pretty impressive product.
It's profound. OK Corral, famous gunfight.
Yeah, that's a cool thing. You're the first person I've talked to about this. Within the next week or two, this is a really cool offering. So we've done construction in the Utah Days of 47 arena there at the Fair Park to try to create more of an intimate atmosphere, different places to sit, sweet environments. And so over the roping end, we have this huge new platforms that seat 60, and they're right over where they rope from. And so it's a private area, and we're going to put 60 cocktail chairs, tall back stools in there. And then below, right down the steps from there, is a shaded area with a big screen TV, free beverages, the Utah Days of 47 ice cream by Rooney's. We've got our own ice cream. We love it.
Nice.
Yeah. And so you can go down there and cool off, get some ice cream, drinks, all a part of the package of buying a ticket there. And what we were going to do is you had to buy 12 for 5 days, which is similar to our Ribs and Rodeo package. Well, what we've decided to do is give the spectators, just the fans, a chance. If they want to bring 4 or 14 people and have their own area where they can pull the stools up together and talk, go down and get a water or a soda or an ice cream and come back up. We're going to put these things on sale. They're going to be called the OK Corral Suites. They're going to be $100 a piece, which compared to some of the tickets, front row, where you sit in your own area. And I'm interested to see how many fans that say, I want to go on Friday night, and I'm going to bring my family, and John, the neighbor's going to come. We're going to pull our stools around together and have a good time. Yeah. The OK Corral, go to access.com. You can look for them. They're going to be released. They haven't been released. I've had them on hold. They're going to be released this week. If you want an experience, right, your own area, this might be a cool way to enjoy the rodeo. Or if you've got a small business and you've got 5 or 6 employees and you don't want to do every night, this might be a cool way to do it. So I think it's fun, and it's going to be open. You can go to the website, buy it. You don't have to buy a sponsorship or be a long-term partner.
Perfect. Yep. You always got to adapt and give people some new experiences. That sounds like a good one. Since we last talked, I believe you've spun up a rodeo podcast called No Spin.
You inspired me.
Oh, wow.
Your podcast inspired me. Your delectable experience and your... No, what happened was a friend of mine named Kendra Santos, who's been a rodeo journalist for as long as I've been in the sport, and I decided to do a podcast that was news-based and most podcasts out there are just kind of story time, which is cool, right? You just visit and tell stories. Ours is news-based about rodeo and the Western lifestyle, along with some pretty passionate opinions.
Yeah.
Kendra and I don't always, most of the time, we don't agree. She is always on she's always on the side of the cowboys and the cowgirls, and I always take the position of the rodeo committees and the fans. And sometimes those opinions don't mesh, and we will argue it out. but we'll also catch you up on current news. So, if you happen to have a rodeo guy in your office and you want to go to the water cooler and out talk him, check out No Spin Rodeo, because you can, every 2 weeks, you can get caught up. You can walk up to the water cooler and go, hey, Stetson's recovering and he's probably going to ride. And they're going to look at you like, how do you know that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's cool. It's cool. No Spin Rodeo. We enjoy it. It's a fun time. Appreciate you talking about it. We're just doing it for fun.
Yeah.
We don't have any sponsors because we don't want to be, but this is just straight talk.
Yeah.
It's fun stuff.
Perfect. Well, always one of my favorite days of the year, Tommy Joe. I really appreciate the time. Again, this could be a 15-hour podcast.
But now you asked me for a story.
Yeah.
Now last year I told you about Junkie.
Yep.
Remember Junkie the monkey that we went through the Canadian border smoking the Marlboro and naked?
Yep.
So if you didn't catch that and that tease doesn't make you want to know, go find it.
Yep.
I was trying to think of I've got a million stories. So I'm going to let you choose. We can talk about bullfighting and one of my worst wrecks. That's option behind curtain A. Okay. on Stories Are Right. Behind curtain B is the first whiplash, eating a fingernail. That's behind B. And C would be, I'll make two monkey stories. C would be Runaway Speedy. That's a capuchin monkey. So you got Runaway Speedy to pick from, Fingernail Monkey, or Tommy Joe's worst bullfighting wreck.
Damn, this is a selfish choice. I'm going to go curtain A.
Curtain A, the worst wreck?
Get some more.
Okay, well, we prefaced this a little bit that I was a bullfighter, but not a very good one. So I eventually turned into the clown in the barrel.
Yeah.
And the clown in the barrel's job is when both bullfighters are wiped out, you get out of the barrel and come help.
Yeah.
Better for me. The odds of the two guys getting wiped out weren't good. Well, we were I was in Missouri at this rodeo arena that was dug down in a pit, hot, clowning, and the bull riding starts, and the first bullfighter gets hooked in the fence. He's out. Second bullfighter is the only one there. I'm like, great, here we go. I ate a Polish sausage before the bull ride, and how good's this going to be? And I'm entertaining the fans, kind of the funny guy, and the last bull rider out gets hung up, and that's when your hand rolls over in the bull rope and you can't get it out because the bull riders are flying around. They're not on their feet. Well, when they get hung up, that means Tommy Joe, the Italian wop in the barrel, needs to get out and come help. So Tommy Joe gets out and I come in to help, and the first bullfighter gets knocked down and run over the guy still hung up. Well, again, I'm not great at it, but I do know how to do it. So I time it and I jump in there and I get a hold of the tail, and the cowboy comes loose. So congratulations. It's the next 12 frames that are bad. I fly over the back of the bull, and he was a muley. That means he has no horns, which one would think means better. Mm-hmm. Not always. This muley hit me square in the chest. And in this old arena, the announcer, who was Clem McSpadden at the time, old-time announcer, this announcer stand was about 30 feet in the air because I'd have to go up there and talk to him, and it was up a ladder. I mean, it was way up there. And I get hooked in the chest, and I feel bones break, and I'm flying through the air, and it just seemed like you said, because that's what jogged my memory on this. You said about flying. I'm flying. It seemed like eternity, and I remember turning upside down, and I remember looking right at Clem McSpadden, the rodeo announcer, in the face, and thinking, you should wave to him because you're 30 feet in the air. And then I thought, well, you're going to hit the ground here at some point. Hit the ground. Bull ran over me, left. Crowd was clapping because the little fat clown helped the situation. I got up and I felt my chest just move like this. And let me tell you, when that middle bone isn't connected, it will cause excretions in all over because something ain't right. So I broke my sternum in two.
Oh boy.
Didn't have any health insurance, so the paramedic said you need to go to the hospital. I said, no, thank you. If you'll take the gurney that I'm on and wheel it to my camper and help me get in my camper, I'll rethink about this in the morning. And so along with some little, this is not recommended, but along with some butazolidine and different kind of animal-related drugs that are part of the Old West, I clowned the next night with a broke sternum. We wrapped it up, and so what brought that story to mind was when you said flying, because I'm not exaggerating when I had to be and I don't even remember hitting the ground, and I don't know whether the bull broke my sternum when he hooked me. I think he did. Or I broke my sternum when my 200 graceful pounds hit the dirt. But yeah, that was my worst wreck. I broke my elbow. I broke lots of things, but the sternum breaking isn't all that fun. So
yeah,
there you go.
Wow.
Not that funny, but a darn true story.
Well, it is an amazing story, and I do believe that the 30 feet. That's a 2,000-pound animal that had the full momentum.
And his head was so incredibly hard.
Yeah.
I remember that. Yeah, it wasn't fun. But I still remember looking at Clem. Well, you can imagine. Oh, there's Lucia. Oh my goodness, he gets knocked in the. Well, hello, Tommy Joe. You're up here with me. There you go.
There he goes.
All right.
I love it. Yeah. So if you did go to the emergency room and they say, "What's your pain?" and they point at the 1 to 10, you'd probably say 10 on that one, right?
I think there might have been some shock at that moment. I can tell you that, well, the second most painful, we got to stop this podcast, but have you ever broke your tailbone? Okay.
Come close.
Let me tell you, it's a cross between sternum and tailbone. Sternum, you can do most other functions fine. Tailbone is in a particular area that if you get up, if you sit down, if you lift your leg, it causes extreme pain. So I remember the sternum being painful, but you could kind of hold it together with tape. Have you ever tried to tape your tailbone?
Don't work.
It doesn't work. There's no taping. It's going to heal with movement. Yeah. And so all of you out there that ever wonder, do what you can to not break your tailbone. It's ribs. Have you ever broke a rib?
I have.
Same thing, right? You wouldn't think. But let me tell you,
That's
tailbone, way worse, buddy.
Yeah.
Way worse.
I'll avoid that one. Well, Days of 47 Rodeo, it's easy to find. The tickets are easy to get. They're very affordable. 5 days of as good as it gets entertainment. So
yeah, and there's a lot of specials if you're money conscious. The Monday and Tuesday, if you look and pay attention, you can get real value to come Monday and Tuesday. Same show, same cool thing. But again, Utah State Fair Park, end of July, Pioneer Day, right? Parade, lots of things to do. Thank you for having me on the podcast. Congratulations on all of your successes. And God willing, and blessings for our family, and we'll see each other in a year.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Appreciate it, Tommy Joe.
Uh-huh.
All right.